Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to open this Best brand padlock. The lock uses a 6-pin SFIC lock on the bottom. Those of you who don't know anything about SFIC locks, they have two shear lines. One to open the lock, the other is called the control position, and it's used to remove this brass plug in the lock. Now, you'll typically encounter SFIC locks in college dorm rooms, commercial buildings, etc. Any place where a large master key system is necessary. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to be using a cheap-ass pick gun. I purchased this off the internet for, I don't know, 40, 50 bucks. And it seems to work pretty well. You can buy more expensive ones, but I've managed to open every lock that I've thrown this at so far, so I don't really see the purpose. With this pick gun, there are a few things to keep in mind. The first is the tension. People generally say that you want to use less tension for freer locks with easier to move pins and more tension for corroded locks or locks with stiffer pins. In my experience, just keeping it on the highest setting is the way to go. I mean, then again, this thing is so cheap that there's really not much of a difference between the high and the low setting. So perhaps if you spend more money on it, you'll get a more fine-tuned instrument. But like I said, this is opened on the highest setting. Every lock from crappy four-pin master lock to this 6-pin SFIC lock I'm about to open for you. Now, the other thing I'd like to address is the pick needle. Now, some people on YouTube, they'll show you videos of pick guns where the needle is positioned like this. You don't want to do that, okay? Some people even go far as to say that it doesn't matter either way. I'd argue that that's not true. And the reason why is because this is essentially a universal bump key. If you don't know what a bump key is, there's plenty of videos on YouTube about people using them and explaining the concept. And so because this is a bump key, you need the flattest surface possible so that when this needle impacts the pins, it delivers an even punch across all the pins. If you have the needle flipped up like this, what's going to end up happening is that that curve that you see there is going to impact the front pins first, which means that the majority of energy is going to be placed onto those front pins, and the rear pins will not receive enough energy to be able to be pushed up into a releasing position. So it's important that you keep the needle like this. Now, a couple of technical issues that people generally run into. These are not as reliable as the movies make them out to be. It's not usually just stick it in once, pull the trigger, twist the tension wrench, and you're good to go. There are a lot of videos on YouTube of people using these to pick very cheap locks, and they do it on one or two tries. But once again, they're using very, very cheap locks. This best lock would cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $150, $175 just for the lock plug. And once again, when you're picking any SFIC locks, they're going to be more expensive, harder to pick. And once again, also, because it is an SFIC lock, it has two shear lines, which means that pins can get inadvertently trapped at the wrong shear line, and subsequently prevent the lock from being opened. Now, that being said, with a little practice, you can get pretty reliably consistent with these things. Although I wouldn't throw out your regular pick set just yet. It took me about a week. I've had previous lockpicking experience, and it took me about a week from getting it to really get it to start opening locks. If you don't have any experience at all, it'll probably take you 2 or 3 weeks to sort of get the hang of it. That being said, I just want to go over a couple of the technical things that people oftentimes do wrong when they try to use one of these things. First thing is they stick the needle in too far. Now what does that do? Well, when you stick the needle in too far, what happens is that there's a block at the back of the lock, which when you stick the pin in all the way, it goes, it basically gets under the block. So when this needle snaps up, it hits the block. The problem is the pins are in line with the block. So none of the force is transferred onto the pins, and it's all transferred onto the block. Now, some locks don't even have holes at the back, so you could stick this straight through the hole, and theoretically, it could look something like this. So if it looks like that, it's wrong. Don't do it, because you'll break the needle, and then you'll have to spend an hour trying to fish the needle out of the lock, and that's a pain in the ass, and that's not cool. So don't do it. If you're a beginner, and you don't know how deep you should stick the pick gun in, or you don't really have a sense of it, what you should do is get a key to the lock that you're trying to open, and you shouldn't be picking any locks that you don't have keys for. So get a key and sort of line it up with the pick thing here at the last bump, and you'll get an idea of about how far. If you want to be really sort of diligent about it, you can put a piece of tape around the needle or something like that. I don't know. You just figure it out. Now, that being said, I'd like to go over how to effectively use the tension wrench in the lock. Now, because this is a bump key, and if you did what I told you and did research on a bump key, you'll know that you need to use very, very little tension on a bump key, because otherwise you'll inadvertently set pins when you don't want to. So what I actually do is sort of like bounce the tension wrench. So when I click the gun, as you'll see in a moment, I put pressure on it, and then when I release the gun trigger, I release my finger on the tension wrench. What this does is it allows the pins that were improperly set to reset, and then when I click the gun again, it's basically giving them another go. So, that being said, I'm going to give this a little crack here. Now it's locked. Stick that in here. Anybody who says that they're picking an FSIC lock on a one click with these things is just lying to you. Oh, there we go. Now, the way I generally do this is I stick the tension wrench in about halfway here, and I'm actually going to set this on my knee because it's important to sort of okay, there we go. Alright, tension wrench, you should be putting so little pressure, it actually just fell on the floor here. You should be putting so little pressure on the tension wrench that when the lock pops open, it actually, the tension wrench will go flying, as it just did. I don't know where my tension wrench went, but bottom line is that there's the lock open. It's going to take you probably, like I said, once you're sort of like, if you knew how to use this lock picking gun, it'd probably take you about a week to figure out how to get this stupid thing open. 6-pin, best brand, SFIC lock. Thanks, guys. Post comments and questions, and I'll try to get back to you.